Okay, so let's talk about something we do every single second of our lives, thinking. But what is a thought, really? I mean, on a biological level? Well, today we're going on a wild, microscopic journey to trace a single idea from its first little spark all the way to its final action. We're going to peek inside the incredible wiring that powers your mind.
Think about it. A memory, an idea, the decision to snap your fingers. It all feels instant, right? Like it just happens. But underneath that seamless experience, there's a crazy high-speed relay race going on, a mix of electricity and chemistry. So how does that actually work? To really get this, we have to start with the messengers, the star players of the whole nervous system, the neurons. Right, so think of a neuron as a tiny living wire, and it has a very specific job. You've got its dendrites, which are like these little antennas catching signals from other cells. Those signals all get processed in the soma, which is the main cell body. And if the message is important enough, it gets fired down the axon, this long transmitter cable, on its way to the next neuron in the chain. But here's the cool part. Not all neurons look alike. Not even close. They're super specialized. Multipolar neurons, with all their crazy branching, are perfect for things like fine motor control. Bipolar neurons? They're much more streamlined, great for sending really specific sensory info, like from your eyeball to your brain. And unipolar neurons, well, they're the long-haul truckers of the system, carrying signals from, say, your big toe, all the way up your spinal cord. It's a perfect case of form following function. So, a neuron gets a signal. What's next? This is where the electrical part of our story really kicks off. And you gotta understand, it's not like a steady current. It's more like a lightning-fast all-or-nothing blast. And that blast has a name, the action potential. This is the fundamental unit of communication in your brain. It's like the dot and dash of our own internal Morse code. And the key thing to remember is that it's an all-or-nothing event. It either fires at full 100% strength or it doesn't fire at all. So how does this lightning-fast blast work? Well, a neuron at rest is just sitting there, negatively charged. But when enough incoming signals hit a certain tipping point, the threshold, it is go time. In a fraction of a millisecond, these little channels fly open, positive sodium ions flood into the cell, and bam, you get this huge electrical spike. And just as quickly, other channels open to let potassium ions out, resetting the whole system for the next signal. It is an unbelievably precise and rapid chemical dance. And this brings us back to that all-or-none law. You might wonder, how does the brain signal the difference between a quiet whisper and a loud shout? It doesn't use a bigger electrical signal for the shout. No, the signal is always the same strength. Instead, the brain codes intensity with frequency. A stronger stimulus just makes the neuron fire more often, sending a rapid-fire volley of those full-strength signals down the line.
But how does the signal travel so blazing fast? Well, many of the most important axons are wrapped in this fatty stuff called myelin, and this myelin acts as insulation, so the electrical signal can't leak out. Instead of having to travel down the entire length of the axon, the signal literally jumps from one gap in the myelin to the next. This whole process is called saltatory conduction, and it basically turns a slow, winding local road into a super-fast highway.
Okay, so our electrical signal has raced down the axon, and it's reached the end of the line. But here's the problem. It can't just jump directly to the next neuron. There's a gap. So how does the message get across? It has to completely change its form. This incredible little junction is called the synapse. It's a microscopic space where that electrical message has to transform into a chemical one. You can think of this as the moment the baton is passed in our high-speed relay race.
So here's how that handoff works. When the electrical signal arrives at the end of the axon, it triggers these tiny calcium channels to open up. This rush of calcium is the key. It tells these little bubbles filled with chemical messengers, called neurotransmitters, to dump their contents into the gap. Then these chemicals just drift across, lock into receptors on the next neuron, and kick off a brand new signal. So it goes from electrical to chemical, and then right back to electrical again. Just amazing.
And what's really fascinating is that the brain uses all different kinds of chemical messengers. Some, like glutamate, are like whispered secrets, super fast, precise messages between just two specific cells. But others, like neuropeptides, they're more like public announcements. They spread slowly and can affect whole groups of neurons at once. It's this beautiful, complex communication system with different tools for different jobs.
Now, you might be thinking this whole story is just about neurons. And yeah, they're the rock stars, for sure. But every rock star needs a massive support crew working tirelessly behind the scenes. In the brain, that support crew is the glial cells.
You know, for the longest time, science just kind of dismissed glia. They thought of them as nerve glue, just this
passive filler stuff that held the important neurons in place. We now know that could not be further from the truth. These cells are active. They are essential partners in literally everything the brain does.
And we're not talking about a small team either. In the cerebral cortex, that's the part of your brain handling all your most complex thoughts, glial cells actually outnumber neurons by nearly 4 to 1. That is a huge amount of support staff, which should tell you just how critical their jobs really are.
So what are these jobs? Well, you've got astrocytes, which are kind of the managers. They control the chemical environment around the synapse and form that protective blood-brain barrier. Then there are the oligodendrocytes. They are the electricians, providing that all-important myelin insulation we talked about. And finally, you have microglia, who are like the janitors and the security guards, all rolled into one. They clean up cellular trash and act as the brain's own dedicated immune system. Without them, the neurons just couldn't do their thing.
So we've journeyed from a single neuron through electrical spikes and chemical leaps, and we've even met the crucial support crew. Now let's zoom out one last time, just to appreciate the mind-boggling scale of what's happening inside our heads every single moment of every day.
170 billion. That's the rough estimate of the total number of neurons and glial cells packed inside your skull, all working together in this incredibly complex concert. Every single thought you have, every feeling, is a coordinated storm of activity across this immense network.
And this brings us to the biggest, most profound question of all. We can trace the physical journey of a signal, right? We can measure the ions and map the synapses. But how does all of this intricate biological machinery, this beautiful dance of electricity and chemistry, give rise to the subjective experience of being you? That is the question at the very heart of neuroscience, and it's something to think about the next time a thought simply pops into your head.